Hi guys, this is pjsthriving, and we're going to talk about finding out that the dad that raised me is not my biological dad. I found out through ancestrydna.com, and wow, what a shocker. And I know through some of my videos I have made a few comments sometimes, and people are like, wow, what is that about? And I just really haven't explained it. So that's what this video is going to be about. My mom had a massive stroke in 2007, and she passed away from complications of that 10 years later in 2016. So we got my dad to move to this side of the United States with us, and my sister and my brother's here. I have an older sister by 18 months, and I have a younger brother by 18 months. So I think it was 2017 or 2018, my dad bought all of us, him and us three kids, the Ancestry DNA kits, and we did them. And he was online doing a family tree, all kind of, he's done an extensive amount, a lot of work, and I never really paid attention to mine. I always just thought that it was to see where our ancestry went back to, what parts of the country, what were we? I thought that's all it was. And I never really paid attention to it. And you know, it shows all these people that I'm related to all the way back. I mean, there's a couple of thousands of them. And it's all the way back to 8th, 9th, and 10th cousins. So there's quite a bit. But I never paid attention to it. I just looked at, you know, kind of where we were and what the breakdown was of what I was. And I let it go. Well, I have a niece who popped up when she turned 18. I met her when she was little. And then her mother just has always told her that my brother was her father. So she popped up and started coming around, and I mean, we've kept in touch like since she's been 18 on Facebook, things like that. But in the last few years, it's been more, and we've met. We had our very first family reunion, and she did a DNA test, and she kept saying to me, "How come I can't show us as a match?" So, you know, first it was saying that it's possible because maybe I didn't make my profile public, so I went and I made it public. Then it said something about I had to attach my DNA to our family tree, so I did that. And then I went in and I did that for my dad, and I went in and I did that for my brother. My sister had not mailed hers in yet. You just get busy with life, and it just got set down, and it just hadn't been done. And we couldn't figure out why hers and mine didn't connect. So we soon found out that my brother was not a biological match for her. And then that is also the time that she was trying to help me figure out how come her and I weren't matching. So then we found out, that was kind of a whole group thing, that we found out that she wasn't related to us. But during that search, she's the one that was showing me how to do this and how to look at that. And I was at my dad's house using his computer this one day, and I was creating my family tree off of his family tree information. And then I started, how come my family tree little hints and my DNA matches, the list that I have, don't match yours? My dad just said, "I don't know, kid." Like, he wasn't paying attention to he was watching TV, doing a crossword, I was doing something, and I was on the computer, and he just kept saying, "I didn't understand," he didn't know, he didn't know, he didn't know. So my niece said, "Take a screenshot of what you're looking at and send it to me." Well, I did, and she said, "Look down at the bottom where it shows," like I was looking up the relationship between me and my brother. And it just didn't dawn on me to look. I never paid attention. I seen sibling, I just left it. So we started looking more, and it showed him and I are only a half sibling. So I thought, half? So I went in and I looked, and my dad and my brother showed 100% parent slash child. So then I went in mine and I couldn't find, under my DNA matches, I couldn't find my dad anywhere. And after about the second or third time, I kept saying, what am I doing wrong? How come I can't find this match? My dad just never even looked up from his crossword he was doing and said, look up and see if there's a Glenn, this guy, he gave me the first and last name, and see if that's under your DNA matches. Well, he wasn't there, but there were others with the same last name. And then I said, well, there is some of those people here, but not the one that you mentioned. Why did you tell me to do that? And he said, well, when I came home from Vietnam, now mind you, I am 52 years old, so we're talking about 52 years ago. He said, when I come home from Vietnam, I had to kick a man out that was living with your mother. And then I was born 6 months later. Excuse me? He said, yeah. I said, and you knew all this time? My mother kept telling stories of how premature I was. So looking back at, the records and the information, I really wasn't premature. I was 7 pounds, 5 ounces. She was telling me I was premature, but that's not what it says in my birth records. So, and for a 7.5 pound baby, I don't think, and my dad just said 6 months after he got back, if my gestation was only 6 months, I would not have been 7.5 pounds. So I was just kind of floored. And he said, oh, I don't care what that damn test says. I raised you in your mind. Okay, well, yeah, me too, Dad. And I'll let it go. But when I got home, however, and I wasn't sitting in front of him, I started freaking out. How could he not have told me? Why didn't he tell me? That's something major. Now, I always felt that I looked similar to him. But my siblings and I, none of us really look like each other. So, hey, I was just kind of floored. And then my sister, I told my sister, and she said, well, dang, now I'm going to turn mine in. She turned hers in, and that's a whole nother issue because apparently my mother they lived in California, and there was the military base right there in Long Beach, and that's where they were living. And apparently my mother liked men in uniforms, in military uniforms, apparently. And I just say, well, apparently... My sisters came back that she wasn't a match either. We are half siblings. Her and I are, and her and my brother are. So, I just say, well, apparently she liked sailors. All of them, apparently. But, that was just kind of I was just blown away because my mom's not here for me to even ask. He knew. The man that raised me, that's still my dad, but he knew my whole life. And I asked him, this was a couple of days later, and went back to his house, and I said, Dad, if you knew, why did you get us these Ancestry tests? And he said, well, I didn't know it was going to do a DNA test. I thought it was just going to show us where our bloodlines were from. Dad, I said, what do you think Ancestry means? What do you think the Ancestry DNA meant? He told me I was being a smart ass. Sorry, but that was kind of obvious to me, but he said he just didn't think about it. He's never gave it a second thought, and that he was my dad and he didn't look at it any other way. So, of course, every time I find a little more information, I have to come home and look. So when my mom did pass away, and before we got my dad to move from the West Coast to the East Coast, we had to go up and help clean out the house, pack it up, and just get things ready for my dad. And we were going through some of my mom's belongings, and in some pictures she had in 2 separate spots, there was 2 separate guys, but we didn't know why the picture was tucked away. So, and it just went into a pile with all the other pictures that we didn't know who they were. So I wasn't thought about again. So after I started going through stuff, I thought, I want to go back and see. Okay, so I went back and went through all of the photos that we had put in that box and to find those two pictures, and it turns out that one of the pictures is my biological father. So I think it was like the second or third day after I found out, I was home and I pulled up the DNA then, and I said, now I'm curious to who all those people were that it says that I'm related to. So when I pulled it up and I started looking and paying attention, I seen I had 9 messages. Now mind you, it's almost a year prior to this, where as soon as my DNA hit, these other people were emailing me saying, hey, we're a match, let's figure out how, and just different things. And I never paid attention to it because I don't recognize any of those. My dad didn't recognize any of those names, so I didn't pay no attention to it. Now finding out all of those names were from my biological father's side. So I started reading all of them, and I was just, I don't know, when you find this out, it's like, it's confusing. I was angry with my dad here. I was mad at my mom, but on the same time, she's not here. I couldn't really get no questions answered, but somebody could have told me. But on the other hand, that was one of their secrets. And mind you, 52 years ago, there was no DNA test. So this was a secret that probably was never supposed to come out. And it came out. Only it came out when I really can't get any answers. So I emailed some of the people back, and then they were in close family. So my sister here and I ends up being, we're half siblings, and it shows like 1700 CMs. And the same thing for me and my brother, we are half siblings, and it shows it's like around 1700 CMs. So there was other siblings to me that showed the same. So as I started seeing that, I started freaking out. Oh my God. But who was my dad? I mean, there was nobody on there that showed a parent relationship to me. So I kind of sent back 1 or 2 emails looking, hey, I see that there's a match. I see that you emailed me. I really don't know. And I had to explain, I just found out that the person that raised me is not my father. And he told me to look up this name. Do you know who this is? And sure enough, I started getting a lot of information. And it was from a cousin. And then I think within that week, I also heard from 2 of my siblings. I have 3 brothers, 3 more brothers besides what's here. So it was kind of shocking. And nowadays, there's DNA tests and all of these different companies that do this, and it's so easy for people to find out. But when you've lived half or 3/4 of your life believing one thing, and then all of a sudden it's just ripped out from under you, and no, this is it, then I'm angry because they never told me. And there's this whole other family that has just opened up the doors and wholeheartedly accepted me, except there's this COVID thing, so we can't travel and visit because the majority of them are all in Louisiana. And I would love to go see Louisiana, but the whole COVID thing, we can't do that right now. So I'm excited to meet the new people, and at the same time, I am angry because I was kept from them. And it did turn out that my biological father passed away. His military and death record says in in combat, so he was still in the military. So I would have never got to know him anyway. And my siblings, I'm the oldest, so I'm no longer the middle child anymore. I'm the oldest. But they, because they're younger than me, they were very little and babies when my biological father died, so they didn't get to know him either. But it's just been it's been 1 year now, and I'm, learning other people and communicating with other family members, and the mixed emotions and the anger isn't so bad anymore, because those are just questions that will never get answered, because both of them, both my biological mother and my biological father, are no longer living. So those questions will wait until I meet them one day. And it's just been, it's a little bit of a roller coaster, because the little things that, sometimes things are said here, and my dad asked me a lot of questions about them and what have I found out, and there's a part of me that doesn't want him to know. He didn't want me to know all my life, and now he wants these answers. I just don't think he's entitled to know. And he just I guess, parents who want something so bad don't think about the child when they make certain decisions. And my mother married my father to get out of the home she was in. So it was the first guy that came along, and she up and married him. She was 18, and she got pregnant right away, and then he was gone. He was in the Vietnam War, and he did like 3 tours in Vietnam. So the first time he came back, my mom had to move somebody out for him to come back home. And when he came back home, my sister was 6 months old and had the same color hair, eyes, everything as him. She told him it was his daughter. And then he had to go again, and when he came back, he walked in the house and found another man and kicked him out, and that ended up being my biological father. So he knew for sure that I wasn't his, and he knew his whole life. He never treated me any different than the other two. Well, I think he favored my other sister more than he did me, but it wasn't to the point where, it was drastic. So I guess I was just kind of floored, and now I still have doubts with the man that raised me. He's lied to me. What else has he lied to me about? And on the other hand, I'm excited because I have 3 more siblings and nieces and a nephew. And there's, I think, 3 nieces and a nephew, 2 nephews. 2 nephews and 3 nieces. And I have aunts and uncles that are still alive. And they all stay in communication with me. And just wholeheartedly opened up their hearts to me and talked to me like I've been part of their family the whole time. So that's kind of hard for me to get used to, because the family that I grew up with were not close with their family. So there isn't like aunts and uncles and other family members around. So I grew up without it the whole time. So there's a part of me that just kind of feels cheated and robbed. So I deal with that a little bit, and I'm just really anxious to get through this whole COVID thing, because I really want to go meet everybody. So that's the exciting part. So there's still more information to find out, and there's so many more relatives that I don't know where they fit in the picture yet, because there is a lot. So there will be an update to that in another video, because there's some really cool information that I'm finding out. And it's exciting and frustrating and almost to a point of heartbreaking. So it's kind of like I was watching a few of the other videos where people were finding out similar information, and I totally understand how they're feeling and what they're going through now. So that's the story. I mean, I have had a few people comment on some comments that I had made before, and it was in reference to this. So I hope that kind of helps clear it up. And stay tuned. There'll be a part 2 when I'll learn more information. So until next time, guys, please stay safe, wear your mask, and have a great week. Bye, guys.